This is an unscripted video of 2001: A Space Odyssey. I did this film recently, but in this video, I want to elaborate on why I believe HAL 9000 disabled the AE-35 unit of that ship. And this is just my interpretation, by the way. Also, I want to talk about the three psyches, or the three minds in this film. We're going to start with the humans on the spaceship Discovery. There are three humans that are asleep: Whitehead, Kaminsky, and Hunter. And there are two humans that are awake, Dave and Frank. Collectively, they are one mind. The three humans that are asleep on the ship represent the subconsciousness, and Dave and Frank represent the conscious. Now, consciously, they do not know why they are going to Saturn or what was discovered on the moon, which was the monolith. Only the three astronauts that are asleep know that, and that is why they are asleep. They are asleep so that they won't be able to interact with Dave and Frank and inadvertently tell Dave and Frank what they discovered on the moon and why they're going to Saturn. They are compartmentalized from each other where they cannot, there's no way that they can communicate with each other. This allows Dave and Frank to be 100% focused on the mission without any distractions. Now let's go to the moon. And the scientists there who discovered the monolith on the moon, they are cut off from their family and friends on planet Earth. Because according to Dr. Haywood Floyd of NASA, if the people on Earth knew what they found on the moon, then it would probably result in disorientation, fear, because militarily advanced civilizations have a history on Earth of taking advantage of militarily weak civilizations. So it will be interpreted like a threat. So therefore, the people on the moon cannot communicate in any way whatsoever with the people on Earth. So the people on the moon and the people on Earth, they are one psyche. They are one mind. Okay, now let's go back to the spaceship Discovery. And let's go back to HAL 9000. HAL 9000 runs the ship. He's described as the central nervous system of this ship, so to speak. He is one mind, one half of this mind. He's the conscious part of this mind. Now, the unconscious part of his mind is planet Earth. In the book, planet Earth is described as HAL's conscience. But that's where the problem is, because HAL is able to communicate with his subconscious mind. However, Dave and Frank cannot communicate with the three astronauts who are asleep on the ship. The people on the moon cannot communicate with the people on Earth. They can't communicate at all. However, HAL 9000, through the AE-35 unit and the antenna on that ship, can communicate with planet Earth. So HAL is conflicted. Because remember, he is being asked to lie, if asked, about what was discovered on the moon and why they're going to Saturn. And he cannot do that. So since Earth is his conscience, that's where his conflict is. So what does he do? In order to resolve this conflict, he has to do the same thing that was done by freezing the three astronauts on that ship to prevent them from talking to Dave and Frank about what they found on the moon. And he has to do what the people on the moon were ordered not to do in talking to their family and friends on Earth and inadvertently telling them what they found on the moon. And how HAL reconciles his mission and his conscience, and that order to lie is to just cut himself off from his conscience. See, because if you cut yourself off your conscience, you could do anything. On that point, we are going to segue to another film, Apocalypse Now. Now, when Kurtz, when he served in the Special Forces, while at the same time doing humanitarian work in Korea, when he relates this particular story to Willard, this is where his conflict came in, because they inoculated these children, these small children, for polio. And they left, and they were called back, and they found the arms of these children just in a pile. And he said that he just broke down, and it just blew his mind that people could be this heartless. The enemy had come in to that village after they left, and they cut these kids' arms off. The very arms that they had inoculated for polio. And Kurtz was distraught by this until it struck him, he said, like a diamond in the middle of his forehead. These people who did this were able to do this without any hesitation, without any consciousness, without any compunctions. And he said it hit him. They didn't have a conscience. And so that's where he realized that they were fighting this war completely wrong. They were fighting that war, and they were fighting the Vietnam War completely wrong. That's when he cut himself off from his commanders in Nha Trang. Now, his commanders in Nha Trang are to him what planet Earth was to HAL 9000. His commanders in Nha Trang was his conscience. And he decided he was going to cut himself off from his conscience. And his conscience are the things that we have to be taught as civilized people. The things that separate us, that distinguish us from animals. Morality, empathy, love, reason, compassion, self-discipline, law and order. You have to teach that. When we are born, we are no different than animals. As a matter of fact, even worse. Because animals are completely amoral. They don't make decisions. It's all about instincts. Whereas with us, we have to be taught. But the things that we don't have to be taught to do are those things that we are born with. Our nature as human beings, hate, lust. We are subjective creatures. No one experiences our pain, our pleasures, except us. And so we live in our own little worlds. And we become civilized when we are taught to understand that there's a world. There are many worlds outside of our world. And to see other people in their world the way that we see ourselves. To empathize, to love, to share, but most of all to restrain the natural impulses that we have, the inclinations, the things that we don't have to be taught. You don't have to try to grow weeds. You don't have to go to the store to buy a bag of seeds to grow weeds. They come up naturally. The things that don't come up naturally, those are the things that we cultivate. But in order to cultivate those things, we have to weed our gardens. So this is what Colonel Kurtz realizes. And this is what causes him to cut himself off from his commanders. Because he'll always have that struggle of one trying to cut out the other. And the only way you can resolve that struggle is to kill the flowers. And he did. He went to the savage jungle, which is a metaphor of his mind. In that film, that jungle is the other half of that mind. The other half of that mind is not trained. That's one mind. But what attaches, what connects those two minds, those two halves together? What causes the conflict between those two halves in that movie is the Nung River. The Nung River is where all of the contradictions, all of the conflict takes place. As long as you stay in the boat on that river, you're okay. But once you get out of that boat, like Kurtz, you become a savage. Now, you notice that when Chief stopped that sampling boat and they shot up everybody on that boat, except for that girl, she was hanging on for her life, and he told his men to bring her on board so they could take her to a medic. Chief did the same thing that Colonel Kurtz's commanders had done by making him do humanitarian work in Korea, even though he was a trained killer. That was a contradiction. You trying to save her life after trying to kill her. Like the photojournalist said, you cannot love somebody and hate them at the same time. So Willard shot her and told her, again, you never should have stopped this boat. Don't get off the river, because as long as you're on the river, you're human. What it means to be human is to fight and to struggle, not with others, but with yourself, with your nature, to restrain yourself from acting out on what your flesh is naturally inclined to. Your thoughts, the way you think about people. There has to be an argument inside of you, those thoughts that your mind naturally gravitates to. So that's what happened with Chief, is he did the same thing that Kurtz was doing in Korea. He contradicted himself. Now, Willard in the film, when he is in Saigon, in between America, which in this film symbolizes civilization, the civilized aspect of this thing called the human condition. When he was in Saigon, that Saigon represented the Nung River. Look at how chaotic that room was. He said that he would rather be in the war. Once they sent him back, oh, he back in his element. He was calm. But he was in conflict in Saigon because of the idea that he was in the middle. He was in between being civilized and being an animal. Now, to drive this point home a little bit more, remember when he left Nha Trang, and that voiceover, he was saying that he killed 6 Vietnamese double agents. One of them was close enough to where he could feel his last breath in his face. Yet he couldn't even remember how that guy looked or anything. Couldn't remember nothing about the guy. Why? It's because he was cut off from his humanity. The same way that HAL 9000 disconnected itself from planet Earth by disabling the AE-35 unit. Willard was cut completely off. On his way in that boat to that Cambodian jungle, he somehow got it back. He got it back by seeing the same thing that Kurtz saw going up that river and reading Kurtz's dossier, because Kurtz became a human being to him. When he killed those double agents, they weren't human beings to him. By the time he got to Cambodia, that jungle, Kurtz was human. Kurtz became even more human when Kurtz had him pinned down in that room, talking to him and pouring out all of his pain and telling him what it was like on that other side and how he felt. He became real human. So what happened in him becoming human and how that affected Willard now, because Willard's mission, remember, was to exterminate him with extreme prejudice. That made it hard. Remember, I said that your conscience is the thing that creates the conflict, the struggle. You know, this is why you see these guys and they take advantage of women. And what they want to do, they want to get them high, they want to get them drunk. Because when you get a person high or drunk, that's going to weaken the control that they have over themselves. So that's the same principle by which the conscience acts upon the natural inclination and urges that we have, the things that are buried in our heart. What that conscience does is it creates that conflict. You don't want to do it. You're wrestling with yourself because of that. That's a fight. That's why that river, the Nung River, is called Operation Brute Force. Because then you got to fight against yourself. You know something is wrong and you feel like doing it, but then you got your conscience back here telling you, no, you can't do that. That's wrong. You was taught better than this. You know that this is wrong. What if that were you? So this is the effect that having a conscience has on Willard in killing Kurtz. He's conflicted. It's hard again. Because if you're going to do something like that, it's supposed to be hard. If you take another man's life, that ritual sacrifice in which they killed the water buffalo and then showed him killing Kurtz, that was hard. But guess what happened? After he did it, what happened? He got back in that boat and back on the river. What that means is that he got his humanity back. Because remember now, he lost his humanity when he got off the boat. On the boat, that's where you get your humanity back. Because nobody is ever going to be good. These virtues of being civilized, of being a human, of being able to exercise restraint, these things, those virtues, we can never live in that, because we are flesh. As long as we are human, flesh, long as we are flesh, we are always going to be pulled to the wrong side. We're always going to be pulled towards our natural desires. But as long as you're on that river, you're still human. So that's what I wanted to share with you. I wanted to kind of elaborate on the videos. I think I did a couple of videos on 2001 in the past, and I felt like I needed to just elaborate straight from the heart. I didn't want to have a script and be confined or constrained by that script. I wanted to be able to speak and even digress if necessary. But I want to thank you for watching this video, and if you like it, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment and let me know what your views are, whether you agree or disagree, or whether you want to add or subtract. I appreciate it all the same. Thank you. I'll see you next time.